Hello friends, I am back with the most awaited video, Weblogic interview questions and answers. Okay, so I will start with the basics. Okay, and but one thing I would like to say about when we go for any interview. Okay, you can't be perfect all the time, and you have to keep learn. You have to keep prepare yourself because when you go for an interview, okay, then it completely depend on the person who is going to take your interview and his or her knowledge level. Weblogic, as we know that it's a very huge software. You can say it is a C, right? There are a lot of things are there, and every organization is not using the every functionality of Weblogic. But yes, some of the organizations are using different functionalities. Some other organizations may be using some different functionalities, right? For example, if we have a GMS in Weblogic, then it may be in use in some organization, but in another organization, GMS may not be in use. Similarly, you have different other components in WebLogic, right? You have a data source, you have a deployment, then you have a cluster, then you have a diagnostic module, and there are a lot of functionalities are there. Okay, so when you go for an interview, it's completely depend on your luck as well, your knowledge level as well, and apart from that, it's most of the time it depend on the person who is going to take your interview and his or her knowledge level. Okay, so one thing I would say, you have to keep learn about the technologies. Okay, if you wanted to be an expert of a particular technology, okay, then you have to keep learn about that product. Whenever a new version is coming, then what are the new features of that product, what are the functionality of that product. But apart from that, you have to be clear on the basics of any technology or any software, because basics doesn't change. There would be enhancement in the basics, but basics doesn't change. So if you wanted to be an expert of any software, any technology, make sure to first cover the basics of that technology and then go for the advanced options or advanced features. Okay, so in same track, I am going to start with the WebLogic interview questions and answers. This would be in a different parts. As of now, I am not sure how many parts would be there for this particular topic. Okay, but yes, I will try to cover the basics first, and then I will go with the some advanced level of discussions or some advanced level of questions and answers. Okay, and if you are preparing for the yourself for the WebLogic interview, or in fact it's not about specifically to WebLogic, but maybe you're for the quiz and middleware as well. Okay, then I would recommend you to go through all the videos that I'm going to post, okay, from part 1 onwards. So let us begin with the basics. The first question that come to the mind, okay, or maybe when you are going to for any interview with around 1, 2, or 3 years of experience, okay, in that case, the interviewer will start from the basics first. Okay, the first question could be, what is a domain? Okay, so if you have some knowledge about the WebLogic, then we install the WebLogic in a server, and after installing the WebLogic, we create the domain, right? And all the resources we configure inside the domain, whether it is a managed server, whether it is we do the deployment, we create the cluster, data source, JMS, or any configurations that we create. This completely inside the domain. So domain is one of the basic logical entity, you can say, of the WebLogic server. So there could be multiple definitions of that. Okay, you can define it in your own language as well once you have the complete clarity of the domain. Okay, the first definition would be, an Oracle WebLogic server domain is a logically related group of Oracle WebLogic server resources. So as we know, that first term that we do after the installation of WebLogic, we create a domain, and now all the resources are inside the domain, right? So that's why we called it as a logically related group of WebLogic server resources. So resources in the sense managed server, deployments, cluster, data source, JMS, and then whatever the configurations we do inside the WebLogic, it is called as a WebLogic server resources. So it is a group of WebLogic server resources. Second definition that you will see in some documentation is, domain consists of one or more WebLogic server instances and their associated resources that you manage with a single administration server. So what does it mean? A domain has a admin server, and inside that you have a managed server, and then you create the different WebLogic resources that you can associate with your managed server, right? So when we do the deployment, we target it to the managed servers, right? When we create the JMS, we target it to our managed servers. When we create the data sources, we target it to our managed servers. So that means a domain consists of one or more WebLogic server instances and their associated resources that we target to the managed server, right? And then we manage it with a single admin server. So this is the definition of a domain. Third, you can say a domain is the basic administrative unit of WebLogic server. And the fourth one, which I would say about my preferred definition for a domain is an interrelated set of WebLogic server resources managed as a unit. That means all the resources inside a domain you are managing as a single unit, okay, and all the components are interrelated, because your deployment need a connection from the data source, your deployment may need a connection from the JMS, right? And all the deployment would be on the managed servers, your managed server would be in the cluster, right? So that means all of the resources are interrelated with each other and all are managed as a single unit inside a domain. So these are the any definitions, and once you have a clarity on the domain concept, okay, then you can mix up all these terms and then you can define it in your own language. Second question, is that possible to create multiple domains from a single installer? So the basic what we know about, we do the installation of WebLogic and then we create the domain, right? But is it possible to create multiple domains from a single installer? Okay, yes. So yes, that is possible. But what are the consequences of that? And that means if you are creating multiple domains from a single installer, okay, then what are the consequences? That there could be benefits or there could be some drawbacks of that as well, right? So the answer would be yes, it is possible. That means suppose this is a single machine A, okay, and you have installed the WebLogic, and then you have created the two domains. First, one domain is for testing purpose, and second domain is for your development purpose. Okay, so that means you have two different domains. You will stop the different separately. You will have admin server for both domains, right? And then they both will be our independent domain. But yes, they both will be pointing to a single binary, or you can say about to the single installation, right? So this could save your licensing cost, okay, because it is based on your binaries that you install, right? And then less resources required, of course, because if instead of you are creating a two domain in a single machine, and if you go for a two domain in two separate machines, your resources will be saved. Like your compute server will save, your switches, wire space will where your space going to be taken by two machines, it will be now taken by the only the one machines. Your switches, wires, compute, everything. That means you are going to save your resources. So resources count and users will be less, okay. But yes, in that case, if you are going for a patching, then there would be a single downtime, because both domain are pointing to your same binaries, same installation. So if you have two domains, one domain testing users are working, on second domain development users are working, right? And if you go for the applying the patching, then you have to go for a complete outage for your testing team and a complete outage for your development team as well. All environments will be down in case binary corrupted. And because you have a multiple domains from a single binaries, if that binaries get corrupted, then all the domain will get corrupted. These are the few important points when we talk about the single installation and multiple domains from a single installation. Okay. Now, what is an admin server? Again, a basic definition. So the admin server provides a central point for managing a WebLogic server domain. Admin server is a singleton service, only one per domain. So we all know that about when we do the configurations of a WebLogic server, then we do it from the admin console, right? So admin server we can say as it is a central point for managing a WebLogic server domain, right? And apart from that, there would be only a single admin server per domain. So that means in a single domain, only one admin server is possible, which is the master server for all the managed servers. And this admin server will manage the complete configuration of your domain. And when we talk about what is managed server, so managed server is an instance of your WebLogic server that is running on JVM and it has own configuration. So managed server is another server, just like your admin server, where we do the deployment of our application. It runs on the JVM. In fact, your every application server runs on the JVM. So that means if the JVM would be separate for each and every server. Okay, there could be this question as well. If your WebLogic, all the servers are running in a single JVM or in a multiple JVM. So that means for each and every server, you will have a independent JVM. That means your admin server is running on a different JVM, separate JVM. And if your managed server is running on separate JVM. Okay, and managed server, so you can say managed server is an instance of your WebLogic server that is running on JVM and has its own configuration. So whenever we create a managed server, it has its own configurations. Okay. In a managed server, we deploy the Java components like web applications, EJP, JMS application, and web services. So it is an instance of your WebLogic server which we use for the deployment of our applications. Okay, like web applications, EJP applications, JMS applications. Okay, and you can deploy your applications in admin server as well, but it is not recommended because it is a central point for defined for the management of your domain. So it is not recommended to deploy your applications on managed server. But yes, if you are working on a testing machine, okay, then instead of creating a managed server, just going to waste your memory and CPU, etc. Okay, for testing purpose, you can create only domain with only admin server, and then you can do the deployment on admin server, and you can test your applications. Okay, but it is not recommended, and specifically in the production environment is not recommended. And what is the default port of admin server? 7001. Now, how many admin servers possible in domain? As I said in the previous slide, only one admin server is possible in a domain. That means each domain will have only one and one admin server. Or is it possible to have more than one admin server for a domain? No, it is not possible. There will be only one admin server per in a domain. Okay. So now in the previous slide, we have saw that from a single installation, we have created two domains. So domain 1 and domain 2. So domain 1 will have own admin server and domain 2 will have own admin server and would be one for each. Okay. So now, can we deploy application on admin server? So as I said just some time back, okay, we can deploy our applications on admin server as well, but it is not recommended from the Oracle as well, okay, because admin server is the central point for the management of your complete domain. That means we do all the configurations, we manage the complete domain with the help of admin server, okay, and so it is good to have to use this for configuration management and for maintenance purpose, and we should not deploy any application on admin server. Okay, so now if we talk about what is the difference between admin server and managed server, so an admin server stores master configuration of the domain, including managed server configuration. So we know that admin server is a central point for the management of complete domain. So it has the master configuration of the complete domain. Okay, apart from that, each managed server has their own configuration. Okay, that means the configuration that is managed by your admin server is get replicated on the managed server configuration as well. So that means managed server will have own configuration copies, but when we talk about the complete management of the centralized domain, okay, it is done from the admin server. So we will talk about it later. Why? What is the use of the managed server independent configurations? Okay, so each managed server stores a local copy of the config. As I said that each managed server will manage a local copy of the complete configuration. Okay, for only first time managed server startup, admin server should be running. So when you are starting a managed server, okay, because managed servers and admin servers are completely independent. Okay, so because admin server be used for the centralized management of our domain, right? But there is no hard code dependency between admin server and managed server apart from that one. So when you are starting managed server first time after creating a domain, that time you need admin server should be up and running, right? But after that one, on subsequent managed server startup, it connect to admin server to synchronize configuration. After that one, once you have started the managed server after creating the domain, it will create the local copy of all the configurations. So now that means every managed server will have the local configurations after the first startup after creating the domain. And after that, whenever you start your managed server, it synchronizes with the admin server to check if there are any configuration changes there or not. If there are any configuration, it will replicate in the local configuration as well. And if that time your admin server is not available when you're starting your managed server, then it will not synchronize the configuration, whatever that has been done with in the admin server, okay, that time or before that time when it goes down, and it will start from the local copy of the configuration. So it doesn't mean that if your admin server is down, you are not able to start your managed servers. You can start your managed server. It will start a boot up from the local configurations, okay, but only problem is that if any changes happen from the admin server side, okay, that configurations will not synchronize because your admin server is down, and during the startup your managed server connect to admin server for the synchronization of the changes. Okay, so if admin server is not available at startup, managed server boot with its local copy. So whether, as I said, in that case your managed server will boot up with the local copy. So what's the limit of managed server in a domain, or how many managed servers you can create in a domain? Very basic question. And most of the time, the person taking the interview will ask you about how many managed servers we can create in a domain. Okay, so there is no limit. You can create n number of managed server per domain. It completely depends on the kind of resources you have on your server. Okay, the kind of resources means the RAM of your server, the CPU cores of your server is completely depend on that. If you have a higher CPU, higher cores, and if you have higher RAM, then you can define n number of managed servers depend on your requirements. So there is no limitation on the managed servers. What would be the impact on domain or application in case admin server goes down? So as I said, there is no impact on applications. That means if you have a domain where your admin server is running, you have managed servers are running, your applications are deployed on the managed servers, your client are accessing the application which is deployed on your managed servers, and in between your admin server crashes, it goes down due to any reasons, your client will not get impacted. Okay, your application will not impact because there is no link of the applications with the admin server. As I said, admin server is a centralized configuration repository which do the management of the complete domain, it do the configurations and maintenance of the domain. Okay, but when we talk about the application, your applications are independently deployed on the managed servers, so there is no impact on your applications. Okay, the impact would be if you have deployed any application on admin server, that application will not be accessible, right? That means if your admin server is down, you will not able to access your admin console, you are not able to do any kind of a configurations. Okay, but your managed servers are running, so application will be accessible. So what would be the impact on domain or application in case managed server goes down? It's very straightforward, because your applications are deployed on the managed servers, and if your managed servers are down, that means application will not be accessible in that case. And what is boot.properties file and what is the use of that? So a boot.property file is an identity file which contain the encrypted username and password of your domain. Okay, so whenever you start your admin server or managed server, it look for the boot.properties file. Okay, and specifically when we talk about admin server first, okay, and whenever we start our admin server, it take the username and password from the boot.properties file. Okay, during the startup. Okay, and when we create a new domain, okay, it's a very important point. When we create a new domain in production mode, so we create the domain in two mode. One is development mode and second in production mode. So when we create our domain in production mode, and after that you are going to start your admin server, it will prompt you for the username and password. That means once you will run start weblogic.sh or cmd command in Windows, it will prompt you for to enter the username and then password. Okay, and then it will start the server. After that, you have to go to your domain servers directory. Inside that, your admin server, and inside your admin server, you will see a folder with name security. And inside the security folder, you have to create a file manually with name boot.properties. Inside that, you define username equal to your username, and on next line, password equal to your password. So you have, that means you have to define the hard-coded value of your username and password. On next reboot of your admin server, this username and password will be encrypted automatically. Okay, that means first time when you're creating your domain in production mode, after that you can start your manage admin server, or even you are not going to start your admin server. Before that, you can create a directory with inside that you can create a boot.properties file. That means inside your domain, go to inside a folder server. Inside server, you go to folder admin server. Inside that, create a folder with name security. Go inside security and then create a file with name boot.properties, and then add the hard-coded values, username equal to username, and then on next line password equal to password, and then you can restart your WebLogic server. Then it will not prompt you for the username and password until and unless you will create this file manually. The WebLogic will keep prompt you for the username and password whenever you go for the starting of your admin server. And what is the location of boot.properties file? As I said, it is inside domains, and there would be a folder with name servers. Inside server, you will have a different folders with the name of your admin server and managed servers. Go inside your server directory, and then inside that directory, you will see a folder security, and inside security, you will see the boot.properties file. Is it create automatically or need to create manually? Okay, so as I said, if you are creating domain in production mode, then you have to create it manually first time for the admin server. Okay, and once you will start your managed servers from the console, then this file will automatically created for managed servers. But if you are creating your domain in development mode, then this file will be created automatically. Okay, so that means when you are creating your domain in production mode, you have to create this boot.properties manually. If you are creating your domain in development mode, you don't need to create this file manually. It will be created automatically for you. Now, what is config.file and how the configuration is stored in the WebLogic server? So this is the master file of your WebLogic. We can say it is a master file. Why? Because all the configurations of the WebLogic is stored in a XML format file. Okay, and this master XML file we called as a configuration file, which is a config.xml, and the location of this file would be inside your domain. You will see a folder with name config. Inside config, you will see a file config.xml file. So this is the master file, and most of the configuration of your WebLogic are stored inside this XML file, and that's why we said is as a master file. Okay, and inside the config.xml, you will have a sub content of the XML file. That means if I'm saying that inside config directory, you will have a file config.xml. Okay, and this config.xml file may refer to another configurations which is there in another folder. For example, inside the config, you will have a folder with name JDBC, and inside your JDBC, you will see different XML files, and those XML files will be for each of your data source. That means if you have a 5 data sources, then you will see 5 XML files, and all 5 XML files for each and every data source, and all these XML files will be referred inside your config.xml file. Okay, that means the name of your data source would be defined inside enter.config.xml, and that data source will refer to the corresponding XML file which will be there inside your config and JDBC. Similarly, when you go for the configuration of your JMS, then there would be a folder with name JMS, and all the JMS configuration files will be inside your JMS. And in config file, you will have a name of the configurations, okay, and that will point to the XML files which will be there inside your JMS folder. So that means config.xml file is a central file which contain most or almost all of the configurations of your domain. Okay. What is the heap size or memory? For that, I would recommend you to go and look for the video that I have posted on my channel on performance tuning of Java heap. You will get a good understanding of that one. But as of now, you can see that the Java heap is where the object of a Java program live. It is a repository for the live object, dead object, and the free memory, right? So when we know about it, when we start a managed server, it started on a JVM, Java Virtual Machine, okay? And there are different parts of your JVM, okay? And one main part of your JVM is Java heap. So it is a repository where your all the objects of your code are created, okay? So whenever any application or any user or any third-party application access your applications, okay, whether the HTTP call or whether the RMIA calls, okay, then that application get invoked, and then all the related objects created in your JVM inside your heap size, heap memory, okay. And whenever that application is not using the objects, then it get cleaned from the heap memory, or you can say that dead objects get cleaned from the heap size. Okay, so heap size is the area of memory used to store objects by application running on the JVM. So that means it is a heap size, it's a memory where all the objects of your applications are created and get freed when they are not in use. Is there any limit to define heap size or memory? It is again an important point. How much size we can define on for the heap size, okay? So it depends on the two parameters. One is if your operating system is a 32-bit operating system, or it is a 62-bit operating system. If you are using a OS which is of 32-bit, okay, then the maximum limit that you can define in for your JVM is 4 GB. That means in a 32-bit of operating system, whether it is a 32-bit of Windows, 32-bit of Linux, or any kind of OS, okay, the maximum limit for your JVM is heap size is 4 GB. Even you can define more than that one. You are defining 6, 7, 8, 10, and 12, but the utilization will not go beyond 4 GB because it is a limit of your operating system. So you can't define the JVM heap size more than 4 GB for a 32-bit operating system. But now if you have a 64-bit operating system, then there is no capping. You can define any number of GB for your heap size, depend on the requirement of your application. Okay, and how and where we find the heap memory? So you can find the heap memory inside your set domain.sh file. Inside that you will see the parameter -xms, okay, and xmx. So xms for the minimum size of the heap, and xmx for the maximum size of the heap. So this is the option 2. It could be defined from the console as well if it is not in set domain env.sh, or this could be in the set domain env.sh. But okay, but apart from that, you have an option to define from the admin console as well, which will override the value which you will define in the script. Okay, so for that one, you go to your admin console, click on your servers. After click on servers, click on configuration, and then server start tab. Inside that, you can define the JVM parameters inside the argument. Okay, so when you will start your manage server, it will take this particular parameter that you have defined in the server start tab of your admin console. Okay, and third, if you wanted to define for individual server, there could be n number of managed server, right? And you may want a custom heap for server. That means for managed server 1, you want a 1 GB of heap. For managed server 3 or 4, you may want a different heap size. And if you are going to write the same parameter in setdomain.env.sh, then it will be applicable for all the managed servers. But your requirement is a custom heap size for different managed servers. In that case, you can define this particular condition. If server name equal to your server, then please assign this particular memory heap for the server. So this kind of a syntax you can define in your senddomain.env file for custom memory requirements. Now, when we talk about what is a cluster, so cluster is a group of managed servers that we use for the load balancing and high availability. And for this as well, I would recommend to go to my channel, and I have posted a few videos on the load balancing and high availability on the Weblogic server, architecture of Weblogic server, and there you will get a good understanding of cluster. What is the meaning of a cluster and why we use it? But as a question for an interview, you can say cluster is a group of managed servers that we use for the load balancing and high availability. So high. So load balancing means your request will be load balance between different managed servers. So if you have two managed servers, then request one will go to managed server one, the request two will go to managed server two, and third request will again go to managed server one, and fourth request again will go to managed server four. That is called load balancing. And then high availability in the sense, if you have two managed server, when it get crashed, then your second server is available to cater the request, right? So that is the work of a cluster, which is used for the load balancing and high availability. And when we talk about the different cluster algorithms for the load balancing in your cluster, okay, then in that cluster you have a different kind of a load balancing techniques like round robin, weight based, random, and then there are three different kind of a technique for server affinity. Okay, so you don't need to go for in detail for the server affinity kind of a algorithms, but yes, when we talk about round robin, weight based, and random, then there is a bit difference in between them. Round robin, as I said, it will go one by one in each and every managed server. Weight based is, that means what is the weight that we will define for a particular managed server. Like for example, the server one you want to take the 80% of load, and server two you want with the 20% of load. And the reason for that is your server one is of very higher configurations, but server two is of very low configurations. So definitely you want your most of the requests will be handled by the managed server one, and the less number of requests should be handled by the managed server two. In that case, you can opt for the weight base, okay, where you can say 70 to 80% weightage to your managed server one, and then 20 to 25% of weightage to your managed server two. Okay, and for cluster algorithms, we load balance the request for EJBs and RMI calls. Okay, so for servlets and JSPs, we need a web server and other load balancers. Okay, and for this particular topic, I would recommend to go for my channel and then see the load balancing video, where you will understand complete the concept of web server and application server, about servlets and JSPs, and then EJBs and RMI objects, and how EJB RMI calls are initiated, and then what is the difference between RMI and HTTP call. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for a few more interesting videos.